Sweet.
Hello and welcome to the Primal Polar podcast. My name is Antonio Mazzola. We're here today talking with Casey Descharnes. Oh man, I might be butchering that. I apologize, but
You did well there.
thank you. And we're gonna talk about all kinds of men's stuff. So, Casey, first, if you'd like, kind of introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Sure, yeah. Well, my name's Casey Descharnes. The bulk of what I do is men's work, a lot of men's coaching, help run retreats, help facilitate. Yeah, I'm someone who got into the work by necessity. You know, I was not a therapist.
Got it.
I'm someone who got into the work through my own, dark time in life, and it kind of fell into my lap, and it's been a gift. It's been a ray of light in my life for the most part. The men that I've met through this work, the things I've discovered about myself that I never would have if my life trajectory did not throw me down that path.
I understand.
Yeah.
Well, that being said, then what has your experience been like with like therapy or counseling?
Yeah, I mean, I've had both bad and good experiences. If I'm specifically talking about therapy.
Yeah.
I've personally, used therapy on and off throughout my life. Absolutely. Not throughout my life, actually, throughout the past 12 years or so. And it's been helpful, definitely helpful. The person I would say that I meet with now on an on-off basis is a therapist and a coach. So traditionally trained as a therapist, moved more into his own style of coaching and blending therapy, and yeah, he's great. So yeah, that's my personal use of it.
No, perfect. I guess the question is, so like for anyone listening, like what's made the difference, would you say, from your experience with like a therapist versus a coach versus like men's work? Like what do you, and maybe for you, like how has each been helpful in its own way, or what do you find to be more powerful? A lot of questions all in one.
Sure. Yeah, no worries. Well, obviously therapy has its own kind of path that it follows, its own dogma, its own kind of set of circumstances and rules it has to work within. Some of them being great, some of them being limiting in my experience. Just an example of that is like how much is a therapist allowed, by law to share about their own life or to tell about their own experiences or to relate to their clients, or that can be a limiting factor. There's some client situations where that's absolutely appropriate and what you want to do for sure. And there's a lot of client situations where that's not great, I think, actually. So yeah, therapy, obviously it has its place, and there's a lot of great therapists. There's lots of.
Can I?
Yeah, sure.
Interrupt.
Yeah.
I'm just curious because you mentioned the limitations. So what if any limitations did you experience maybe working with a therapist? Like that resonates huge with me. So I'm kind of curious if you want to share, if you experienced any kind of, like maybe you wanted more relation or more maybe back and forth. I'm not sure, but if you want to share maybe any kind of limitation you ran into there.
I don't know if I have a specific limitation besides that. I think therapists do feel constrained in their creativity by patient to therapist kind of governing rules. I think they do feel constrained in what they can say, what they can do, how like off course they can go into an experimental type of intervention. Whereas with a coach, you're not going to get that same type of restraint that, which, you know, for some coaches means they're doing these horrible interventions that they have no right doing. And they don't have the depth of understanding of the therapeutic background or of the whatever it may be, neglect, trauma, etc., of a client they're working with, and they end up doing something they think would be therapeutic for them, and it ends up not being good for the client. So there's obviously goods and bads to both, but with a skilled coach, they may do or say things or take a session in a direction that is creative and intuitive and involves some kind of totally off the wall thing or breath work or pose or, you know, different style of meditation. It just gives talented people more freedom to go deep into their creativity and their talent. Yeah.
I like that. That's an awesome way to say that. And I appreciate how you frame it all, because obviously I understand like a therapist is bound by a set of rules where maybe a coach isn't, but that also it has both, right? Like you said, it can be beneficial or it could be detrimental at the same time. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then men's work comes in because that was part of your question. For me, where men's work comes in is it's the group experience. It's the camaraderie of a group, the honesty within a group, being seen amongst a group of other peers and people doing the same work you are, and then being supported by those people, being held up by those people as you go through your own process in the group format, whatever it may be, at the retreat, at the men's, you know, circle, whatever it may be. You're being held up by a circle. There's a therapeutic environment in the circle. Just by being there and speaking truth, you get a lot from that, right? And that can't be recreated in individual work. So a lot of people will say, like, going through a retreat is like doing a year of therapy, right? It's like, because of the amount of hours you get at the retreat, the amount of connection you make, it can be intensely therapeutic, right? It's a deep dive.
Yeah. I understand.
Yeah.
So that being said, like, from my own experience, I've experienced like people in my life who maybe like shit on the men's work aspect of things, like thinking that we're all here just stroking each other's egos and telling each other everything's okay. What maybe has your experience been with that? And is there any, how do I say it? Like, how would you explain it? I know you kind of touched on it, but like, how would you explain it to someone who doesn't really know what men's work is? I guess
it's a hard thing to explain, actually.
Okay.
I find it a little challenging to explain. I'll give you the short version. Sometimes, like, if I'm, you know, if I'm with Connor, we're going to a retreat, we're going to a weekend, and you know, people are like, "What are you guys up to?" We'll say, "Oh, we're going to go run a retreat." "Oh, what kind of retreat?" "A men's work retreat." And they're like, "What's that?" And we're like, "We make men cry." And they're like, "Oh,
very true."
Yeah, we work, and kind of the easy way to frame it is we work for a men's mental health company, and then we're doing a therapeutic retreat. Sure, that also doesn't necessarily conjure up the imaging of what we do. It's more like we lead a group through a process where they get connected to the group and connected to themselves in a deeper way, in ways that they didn't know they needed and would be extremely beneficial to their lives, you know, their relationships, etc. That would be one of the ways to say it. And yeah, a lot of people don't know what it is. You know, it's I definitely get resistance sometimes, or like, people are like, well, men's work, why would you do that? Why don't you do like people's work? Why don't you do it for everybody? You know, like, and it's like, yes, you know, everybody does need the work. We just happen to be focused there in this, you know, this section of people that are men. That's what we do. That's what we focus on. Yeah.
Yeah, understood. I like the we make men cry. And in
Yeah.
case you guys didn't know that reference, Casey does retreats with Connor Beaton of Man Talks, I believe is the company, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just to frame that for people who may be familiar with that. So in your experience with coaching and the men's work, I guess like what does your future look like with that? Like, where do you want to see it go for you personally? Like, as far as, do you want to lead retreats or coach men, or what does that look like?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, that question I'm kind of pondering myself right now. I've been doing
Okay.
the one-to-one client thing for, you know, a couple years now, like 6, 7 years. And while I like it and love it, it kind of can lose spice after a while.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think my biggest thing in this space is I have plenty of things I do in my life on an
Mm-hmm.
individual basis. Um, and my goal is collaboration.
Got it.
Yeah, so my goal is collaboration. I like the idea of being a facilitator for different organizations and helping out to run retreats,
Mm-hmm.
helping out to do group processes or lead a workshop on something, say a grief workshop or a workshop on nice guys or a workshop on sex. I like the idea of kind of like contracting with different men's group and being like kind of like a roaming facilitator, I guess I would say. Um, that sounds really appealing to me because I just have no interest in the individual pursuit of my own type of brand, my own.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's no interest, but I have less interest in that. I mean, I notice what gives me the most juice is collaboration. It really is
Got it.
collaboration. It's bringing my ideas to a question or to a presentation and then having it worked with another presenter's ideas and skills and talents that are totally different than mine and but may like dovetail well. Um, and I also think that's what the work is all about. And that's personally what the work is about for me is being more relational in my life, you know, and forming deeper relationships, working within deeper relationships. That's what's therapeutic for me
That makes
personally.
sense.
Yeah.
No, thanks. So it's like more the in-person stuff though is what, like, being able to be tangible, like in, because when you say the one-on-one stuff, that I'm guessing that's going to be virtual most of the time. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah. The one-on-one stuff is
Okay.
all virtual. It's all
Got it.
virtual,
Yeah,
which is fine and great. It serves its purpose.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
But I understand I mean, I understand the in-person is far more valuable, and the collaborative and the group aspect, the retreat aspect. Is it something where when you collaborate, when you mention collaborating with someone, is it something where you're kind of running it, or you're supporting somebody else who's like the guru, let's say, there, or do you want to be like the main face there?
No, yeah, it's more of a supporting role or a
Mm-hmm.
co-facilitation role. Even
Mm-hmm.
if like there's a day where I come in, like say it's a 4-day retreat, right? And there's a
Mm-hmm.
day where I come in and we focus on one thing that I'm particularly good in, you know, and we could bring that aspect to a retreat. Um, or there's a day where we're doing a lot of work of like just processing people where they're coming out into the middle and really sharing what's going on in
Mm-hmm.
their life and what they actually need the most help with and then I have an angle and the other facilitator has an angle and kind of like work together to help kind of like the man in the hot seat. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I'd be amiss if I didn't say you should collaborate with me. But
I'm into
That's a
that.
little a self plug there for sure.
I'm into that.
But I know a guy.
Yeah, I mean, right? That's part of it, man. I mean, personally, for me, I've been over the years like really deeply humbled by
Mm-hmm.
um, how complex the work can get from a facilitator standpoint. How complex, multi-layered, and nuanced, individualistic um, the work I think of a skilled facilitator, kind of like has to be for it to be actual effective, results oriented, um, perspective changing type of experience for the participants. And that's one thing that I would say like coming to age in right now in my own kind of journey is that like, okay, cool, like I'm feeling like I have a bit of my own robust training. I have a bit of experience now facilitating, hours under my belt there and hours under my belt in the one-to-one. And, it's taken way more than I thought or realized, it
Mm-hmm.
would, um, to get to a point where I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I think I can be really impactful across different environments with different styles of people and interventions.
So on that note, how much of that is you believing in yourself versus other people believing in you, what you offer?
Um, I've been lucky to have people that have believed in me along the way,
Mm-hmm.
which has helped
Mm-hmm.
me at times when I'm not believing in myself or
Mm-hmm.
when I did feel, whatever might have a dip in my own kind of sense of, positive self outlook, whatever it may be. But really going to, retreats with Man Talks and working with Dewey Freeman, working with Michael Gay, working with Connor Beaton. So those guys are so talented
Mm-hmm.
from in my opinion, and when I'm around them and someone brings an issue in or something comes up, they're so talented at handling, the many layers of trauma,
Yeah.
personal development, psychological development, inner child, negative patterning that comes up. They're so in tune, able to read people, able to understand people, able to direct and hold space for an intervention. That to me has been a real like positive, humbling experience for me. You know, it's
Yeah.
been it's been one of those experiences where I'm like, wow, this is such a long road. It's a long path. It's a beautiful craft. If I want to do it like this, like it's the long road. It's the
Mm-hmm.
long, it's the building of the craft, and finding my way, my path in that. Um, so that's been like a positive, humbling experience for me. Not only humbling, just appreciative of like that that amount of commitment to their craft. Yeah.
No, I mean it sounds incredibly powerful to witness like that happening. And I mean I relate to that as I've experienced some of that work from some of those guys as well. But it's like, yeah, I know what you mean, I guess. It's like I always think that like my skills are what they are, but there's always somebody who's more skilled. and then there's somebody who's less skilled, right? I try not to hold the judgment, but also appreciate the, like, somebody else is like, wow, like I never fucking thought of that. I was like, damn, you're like a ninja through that person's soul. Like, that was amazing. Like,
yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned someone having a powerful, like, perspective shift at a retreat. How much of that do you think is up to the individual? Like, they show up open and ready, or do you think that is more up to the facilitator, or what's that balance like in your opinion?
That's a combination, man. I mean, like, people show up to retreats in all kind of different states.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are like really nervous and closed. Some people need to build trust, need the facilitators to show them that it's safe to build trust. Some people come and they're like ready to be open and bare their soul and see what the environment has for them. Some people are literally like there as a last ditch effort before they kill themselves.
Yeah.
Some people are like really thinking of taking their lives and they're like, well, I'm gonna try this, or else it doesn't work, then blah blah blah. So there's high stakes with some of these folks. And some people come and with the attitude that, like, meh, we'll see. I don't know if this is gonna work for me, like really the standoffish kind of thing. And so all the facilitators can do, I think most in therapeutic environments, if the facilitator can create camaraderie and safety amongst the participants, you can get something from the therapeutic group environment. Like, the facilitator's skill doesn't have to be crazy high for it to be a therapeutic event, as long as they can create skilled safety within a group. Yeah.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry, man. I'm not going to interrupt you. I'm going to try.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, but obviously, really skilled facilitators help immensely, because competence does create safety.
Yeah.
Just seen and skilled competence creates an environment of safety and trust, for sure. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, from my experience and just from leading some retreats, I mean, what you're saying definitely resonates. I've had guys that it's like, it's the morning of our last day before we leave the mountains, and then they're finally ready to, like, share. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's taken a while, and it's even reading the room. Obviously, like, the retreats I'm doing are a little more, there's a bigger ask of trust in a lot of ways, because it's like, I'm taking you out in the wild. You're on a trail. Like, you don't have a facility. You have everything you need is on your back in a backpack.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of trust building with yourself and then with the group. But I like that totally resonates. Like, people show up sometimes like very zipped up is the best way to say it.
Totally.
But yeah, it takes a while. And a lot of times it's not even up to me, or if somebody I'm collabing with. I found it's like, when somebody's ready, they're going to share, man. Like, that's, or they're going to realize why they came there, or find why they showed up. Yeah,
yeah, agreed.
But sorry. So what's, for someone who's maybe looking to get into this work, like, or let me say that a little differently, because we mentioned the men's work and, like, why isn't there people work, but I know there's still, like, that machismo stigma. I don't know what better way to say it, like that tough guy stigma around, like, going on a retreat to cry, right? Like, what do you have to say to that? Like, people who avoid getting help, maybe because it'll appear weak. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think it's a bit of an unfortunate one. And it's also cultural, right? Like, it's cultural. There's different cultures within culture that will find getting help as weak, right? But as we know, like it's usually exactly the opposite. Getting help takes courage. You know, becoming open to be relational within a group of men, or within a brotherhood, or with an online group, or within a men's circle, that takes courage, right? It takes courage. It takes the ability to get out of your comfort zone, the ability to kind of like show up and support other people. It's just life skills. It's life skills I think we're meant to have, and we're meant to participate in on a somewhat regular basis. Yeah, I don't have a ton, to say to that. I think likely a lot of our culture, that view has shifted quite a bit, but it may be, there may be remnants of it still hanging on in different, pockets and corners for sure. Yeah.
No, fair enough. Yeah, it's interesting because as I asked that question, I'm thinking like, who do I know that's like that? But I think for me, it's like I've released that own judgment of myself and other people. And like, if somebody's limited, like, that's cool. You know what I mean? Like, you're only going to get so far, and that's okay. And if you're not, that's awesome. Like, you'll get met, or one will get met wherever they're at. Right. And so, yeah, I was just curious kind of if you had anything on that, but you did mention brotherhood. I know it wasn't directly, but what's like, what role has that played along your journey, and like with the men's work and men's groups, like that brotherhood, like how powerful has that been for you?
I think it's probably been massive. Yeah, I think it's been a disconfirming experience that I didn't know I needed, or didn't know the extent to which I needed it. To have other men that were like actually solid as a rock, reliable, wanted to know what was going on in my life, wanted to support me, wanted to understand what was happening, and offer support, guidance, or advice if I asked for it, on a consistent basis, especially when there's things that I might tell them, share, divulge, that, there's some part of my brain that's still going like, if you tell them this, they're going to think you're a fucking, they're going to think less of you. They're not going to want to talk to you anymore. They're going to think, you hold a certain standing now, but if you tell them that, like, I'm going to like, how they see me is going to be affected, and I'm going to drop a couple notches. And that, I don't know exactly where that came from. Was it culture? Was it family? Was it, the environment I grew up in, as far as school and whatnot? Maybe different cultures obviously impact the way we're shaped, but that's a pretty common thing amongst men, right?
Yeah.
That's a very common thing, is like, I did not know how much just showing up consistently to a place and getting the disconfirming experience of like men that want the best for me, and men that want to support me in real ways, how much that means. Because then all of a sudden you're not alone in life. You're not doing it alone. You're not figuring it out alone. You're not thinking you have to have it all together alone. And I think that's been that was, and probably still is, one of the best things about having a group of men around me.
So you mentioned the support. Maybe can you like say more about that? Maybe explain what that means. You know what I mean? I think this kind of circles back to the earlier, like, external judgment of like a men's group is us. Often I've seen it. I mean, I've been part of men's groups like this where it's like we're complaining about our wives or our partners or life, and everyone's like sympathizing with that. But what does that support, and that brotherhood and that community, like, what does that actually look like?
Yeah, good question. And Um, for me, it hits the sweet spot when, okay, so personally, right? Like you're in a group with me, so we meet every week. Then I have my own call with guys every week. And why that call is magic is because there's a blend of supportive, like, oh yeah, I hear you, brother. Like that must be tough to experience that, and challenge. And like, I know you, like, what are you going to do about it? Or is this you being fearful here? Is that being you being insecure here? What's your plan for dealing with this? Just giving me that extra push.
Yeah.
If you need help with that, let me know. Like, um, yeah. So support really, I think, in a healthy, functioning group is a blend of challenge and kind of understanding, and it can be tough to find that line where it's right. But yeah, complaining about just coming and complaining is bullshit, right? That's not
Yeah. Yeah.
necessarily therapeutic, right? um Coming and having the environment be supportive but challenging is like, you're showing up to something with substance.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like the offering it as a challenge, but yeah, I definitely yeah, from my own experience of sharing, let's say I were to share something with you, it would be like a reflection of what you've heard back at me or what you're hearing, which maybe I'm not necessarily saying or hearing myself, and then we have some follow up about, like, there's I've referred to this as like the AAA. It's like the acknowledgement, the accountability, and then the action. It's like, okay, so
I like
if
that.
acknowledge like what it is, right? And then you would even look at me and challenge me in the sense of like, what are you accountable to in that? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I
Yeah.
could be carrying someone else's problem, or be trying to be responsible for somebody else's emotions, or not be responsible for my own emotions or actions. And then I think through us conversing, we would then like, what is an action we can take? And then that's where that brotherhood support comes in, I think, is a good way, you know, um,
For
to
sure, man.
where, yeah, throughout the week, like he could be like, hey, Casey, I want to hear by, next Friday, what happened, where did you go with that conversation? Or did you talk to your boss? Or, instead of just
Yeah, I
nothing
mean, that's
about it.
right.
Yeah.
Like if I say, hey, on a call, like, hey, I want to get this conversation done by the end of the week, and
Mm-hmm.
then I get a message halfway through that week, or someone's actually thought to check in with me, it's amazing for men how much that accountability feels like care. Like, oh shit, they didn't forget. They're actually thinking about me. You know,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
they actually care that I'm going to get that done, and there's some extra gas in the tank for me to get that done now. Like,
Yeah.
accountability and challenge at the right dose is care for men.
Absolutely. Well, it's like, your brothers aren't going to be dicks to you, but they're going to push. And I think there's, I know for me personally, with being part of the men groups, like there's a level, like I don't want to let my brothers down. You know what I mean? Because like I'm going to support them, but I know they're going to support me. So if there is something offered, like I want to raise myself to that challenge. And um, it's been referred to as like iron sharpens iron, right? Like being
Sure.
being strong to each other is just going to make everyone stronger. So
Well, yeah,
I,
I mean, yeah, if you have someone in the group too, you're inspired by, you're like, dang, that guy is actually doing what he says he's going to do and getting stuff done and having hard conversations. And like look at you, you're starting this podcast, you got Primal Polar Bear, you're going through school, you got kids, like you're getting stuff done, man. Like it's a good example to be like, dang, that guy's getting stuff done. It's inspiring.
thanks, man.
Yeah.
That hit me kind of unexpected, but felt really good, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, so on so this is something I hear on retreat, and I try to communicate it. But what, like, I think in the men's work world, you know, we come across all types of guys. There's guys who are very much like, it's seeming a bit existential all the time, like I'm meditating and I can see through my third eye. And then there's like, you know, people are very zipped up. I think I try to communicate what an integrated man looks like. Do you have any maybe insights on that? Like, what for you, like being someone who is, I'd say, on their path to enlightenment, but at the same time, you're human in the world still. You're not like out of our culture. You're not a monk. What kind of message can you offer up about like integrating this work into your life, and what does that look like?
Sure. So I think being an integrated human or an integrated man, a couple simple ways to say it are like, what you do in private is also what you do in public. What you say in private is what you do in public. They don't look different, you know?
Yeah.
Your values that you have in private are the same values you have in public, and you live them out. You live out your, like you've done investigation into your own personal system to understand that you have values, certain core principles that you need to live by to feel like you're in alignment with the human you are on this earth or in this world. And you've done enough investigation and soul searching, and then action and whatever work it's taken you to try to actually live those values out, be those values in the world. Like, if you want to be someone who has integrity, you actually tell the truth. Like, you actually are on, even when it hurts people's feelings, even when, you know, it might put you in a situation where you're judged harshly, whatever it may be. You live the values out, and it's hard to live your values out, right? Like, it's way harder. Yeah.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Than being a bit slippery in different situations. Yeah.
Yeah. Walking the talk, or walking the walk. I'm not sure how that analogy goes, but yeah, that one.
Yeah, like, you know, as a coach, if I'm like wanting to take someone through grief work, you know, I've done grief work, you know, grief work. I've been deep in my own grief. I've been deep in my own anger. I've been deep in my own sadness. I've been deep in my own confusion in relationships. I've been deep in my own dysfunction in relationships, you know? So I want to be able to talk from a place of not only, you know, experience and and skill, you know, and learned skill. And that to me is like an example of integrity, right? Like that's one of the ways integrity comes through in my life. Yeah.
Which makes sense. You're coming from, you're not speaking about something you're not familiar with, which is
I mean, you don't have to be familiar with everything, right? But like,
correct.
you're under, like, you're understanding some of the complexity and nuance of human existence, and like having acknowledged and been through your own.
Yeah. All right, man. What is like one maybe tool that has been most beneficial to you that you could like offer up to any man listening right now to maybe just give them a little something?
This could be simple, but like share with some freaking confidence. Like, claim your right to be human.
You could say bad words. I like it.
Yeah. Like, Claim your fucking right to be human when you share about yourself. And the way that makes what I mean, I think you know what I mean, but the way it makes sense is like if I'm having like a lack of confidence, insecure moments in my relationship, sadness, depression, grief, whatever come up in my life, and I share about that in a way that I'm like bonded with shame because I have any human thing going on, or I don't have it figured out, or I don't have supreme 100% balls to the walls confidence every second of every day. Some of these like fairy tale bullshit that men have up in their heads, they're supposed to be. If like when you have shit going on, share that with confidence. Share it with like, I'm a fucking human. Like, yeah, I felt sad this week. That way you're not bonded to shame while you're sharing it. You're like, it's a level of being able to claim your own right to have experiences as a human while you're on this earth. And it makes you more powerful. Yeah.
I love that, man. That's beautiful. I could feel that. I could feel that power. That was good.
Nice. Love that.
Thank you. All right. So if people want to find out more about you or get in contact with you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Well, like I said, man, I have this old outdated website, CaseyDeSharnis.com, or you can just find me on Instagram, Casey.DeSharnis. That's probably the best way to do it. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And maybe you'll see a collaborated retreat with Primal Polar Bear and Casey here in the future. We'll see. So
thanks, buddy. I'd be honored.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for coming on and talking with me for a little bit.
Yeah, man. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right. Stuff. Be well, everyone. Sorry, man. I'm good at interrupting you today. So
no, it's all good. That's all I had.
All right. Thanks.